Hi, everyone. Nice to be with us this morning at Metro Meet 1.0. I will be taking us through maximizing scholarship opportunities. To start with, a little brief about myself. I'm Iyanu Olalowo. I currently am a teaching and research assistant at Penn State University, Ohio, United States. I'm also a doctoral student at the Department of Curriculum and Instructions. Finally, I'm a product of grace and I'm a child of grace. I would just be talking around what a scholarship is, how do you position yourself for scholarship opportunities, and most especially as it pertains to the United States. And I would go in-depthly into some documents that I would love to share with you. But I think the first time I started trying out institution-based scholarship was in 2020, when I started with University of Alabama Tuscaloosa. So, which is one thing I would also love to start with. Like when you want to try out, when you want to be determined to go for a scholarship, be sure of what kind of scholarship you want to go for. Many people know about Commonwealth, many people know about Erasmus, many people know about MEST scholarship for Japan, many people know about the federal government scholarship board, but there is also the institution-based scholarship, which comes by the way of you get an admission in a school and automatically they'll tell you, we don't want you to come and study with your money. We would pay for the studies you are coming for in our school. So in a nutshell, scholarship is just that offer to do a thing and be relieved of the expenses that comes with it. So you want to school, say they ask you to come to University of Ibadan to school, and UI says, come to school for 2 years. We would be paying your school fee, and we would also be paying some funds you would need to survive. We call it stipend. So scholarship comes in different forms. It can come as a form of fellowship. It comes in the form of stipend. Whatever it is, what matters is get a scholarship. If you look at my screen there, I have a very short story of an individual who secured a scholarship. But you will see the financials there. So the tuition and fee, living expenses, these are individual. You'll see that the funds that the person from the expenses and the student funding for 9 months. Student funding means how are we funding this? What is funding the student? Now, the total cost to survive for 9 months in this particular school where this picture was taken from, it will cost this person $39,000 to school. And scholarship says out of that $39,000, we're going to give you $38,000. So you just need $900 to cover up, and this particular person has over $6,000 to augment it. So that's just what scholarship is all about. Now, the main thing is, let's talk about the United States. You want to position yourself for a scholarship opportunity. The first thing I would encourage for you is an academic excellence. Please do well to augment yourself academically, get the best of your grades in any way possible. Let me start with those who are graduates already. Now you graduated already with a 2.2, with a 2.1, with a first class. It is not enough. Knowing fully that 1 million people graduated with a first class, 1 million people graduated with a second class upper. So I used to tell people, in positioning yourself for scholarship, you need to also have some outside academic excellence spices. For example, you want to have experience working with your lecturer on a project, on a research, you're coordinating your classroom. All of those things, you will later see where it will count. Other things I start to encourage people to have now is get significant certifications. Take, for instance, you can go on Jobberman, go on Coursera, go on Udemy, and take courses. So get certifications that are related. Don't be aiming to do and go for a scholarship in engineering, and you are doing a certification course on how to make beat. You can do that for your personal stores, but you need the one that is related. And again, every skill you have, get certification for it. Now, you know how to sing, you know how to play drums. You might think of, do I need anything for it? I mean, I learned it from church, I learned it from somewhere. Go online on musical instrument skills. By the time I dish out that and go on Coursera, just get something like musical instrument skills. If there's any school that is having a course on it, you just need a certification. You can't tell a foreigner that you know how to do this thing. They want to see what has certified you that you know how to do it. Another way you can augment it is find related volunteerism. You want to go into engineering, take for instance, can you volunteer for an engineering firm? Can you intern for a construction company? Now you have all of those things. One last thing I would say is, if you're still on campus currently, please develop a relationship with your advisor, with your lecturers. You would need it. You would need it. That you don't have a first class doesn't mean you cannot secure a scholarship. So I'll be talking more on the US US schools have a provision for you to even come in, even if you have a 2-2, if you have a second class lower, if you have a second class upper division, you have a place, there's a place for you in the United States education system. Now, this is a myth I also want to deconstruct. If you did an education course, do not let anyone tell you that, education courses don't have scholarships. Every course can be funded. You just need to go through the right channel. Now, if you also did a social science course, I mean, currently I have two of my friends who are doing well in sociology, and they are way heavily funded. I mean, way heavily funded because of the kind of research they are doing. The next thing I want us to do now is positioning ourselves for these scholarship opportunities. Now, I want to prepare, I want to dive into the main theme. So let me start with those who don't have a degree. If you are still in your undergrad or you are in your secondary school and you are in this gathering and you want to look out for a scholarship opportunity in the US, there are basic things I think you need to do. I spoke to all of those. Volunteer, you can do that, start volunteering, have a sport, be involved in a sporting activity. Now, you can't go and intern from your secondary school, but what can you do? You can write examination. One of the exam I encourage that you start preparing for now is your SAT. We call it the SAT exam. The SAT is a standardized exam into the university in the United States. Write an SAT exam, prepare for it. So that is that for undergrad. We will keep talking more about the things you need. You also need a transcript as well. But now for the graduates, you have your first degree, you made a 2-1, you made a first class, bravo. What else do you need to position? You made a 2-2 even. Even if you made a 2-2, there is also a place for you. The first thing I want us to do is settle your mind. So now for those of you in STEM, for those of you in education, for those of you in social sciences, let's first settle in our mind, what do you want to go and study? You necessarily may not be studying what you have studied in your first degree. Now we have done that. The next thing you want to do, every one of you, you have your internet available. Go online, just type schools offering, put that course you want to study. Schools in the US offering the course you want to study. Now, everything I'll be saying from now is US-centric. Universities in US offering graduate English language program. So put a program in it. Or universities in the US offering PhD English language. Now, this is where the peculiarity is. You will see 1001 stuff come out. The first thing that will come out on your internet will be suggestions, maybe from adverts or this, but always go after the ones that has the university website. Maybe what pops out on your screen now will be, for example, psu.edu. But before you get to those ones, that means it is on like portlandstateuniversity.edu. That means it's taking you to the website of Portland State University. The mistake most of us make is that we just do those search and we pick some things from blogs and the like. So go straight to the university website. Now you've done that. Another thing we might be having as a challenge is sometimes the name of some programs we do here is different from what it is in the US. A vivid example, I had a friend who was going to come into adult education, but in the US, it is not under the Department of Adult Education. It is kind of like in industrial education of a thing. So you want to go deep in searching for all of those things altogether. Most times we just think, I applied to this school now, they have this course, and they didn't pick you. Why? It's because that school might be having the program, but there's no faculty who is doing the exact thing you want to do. Now, what do I mean by the exact thing? In Nigeria, most times, we just say, what do you want to study? I want to study computer science. Now, they may have the Department of Computer Science, but all their lecturers might not be lecturing the holistic view of computer science. So now what I'm trying to say is, think of the specific thing you want to do. You look for 10 schools in the US offering speech pathology, PhD. Now you search for those schools. You have written down those schools. You want to search out who are the lecturers. You've seen 10 schools doing those courses. Now that you've harvested all of those things also, in each of those schools, find at least 3 lecturers. I'm also going to encourage us. Don't be so stereotypic. Don't say it's either robotics or robotics. No. Robotics is your major interest. What is closer to robotics that you can still do? It is better you have your chances spread abroad. So now you have the names of the faculty, the emails of the faculty in 10 schools, at least 2 faculty for course 1, interest A or interest B. Another thing you want to confirm is, are these lecturers teaching PhD courses? Are they teaching master's courses? Or have they been teaching graduate courses generally? Some of them will state it there, some of them will not state it there. So now you have done all of those things. You've identified what the person is doing. We now want to prepare your application to suiting those schools. Sometimes people will tell you to reach out to these professors. Maybe in a school, hey, you see a professor who is doing something in, for instance, okay, so I'm in early childhood education. I am interested in education for marginalized communities. I have found a professor in my school who is into marginalized whatsoever. Now, the next thing I want to do is I can reach out to such a professor. However, some schools will tell you never to reach out to any professor while applying. Please stick to it. I've had a testimony of an individual who reached out to two professors in a school, and I think it caused a kind of like conflict, and the person was dropped. So if the school states that you shouldn't reach out to a professor in your admission process, please do not do that. You can only read about those professors to know how do you write such that it can capture 2 or 3 professors' interest in your application. Now that you have done that, if you have the chance of writing to a professor, what we call that is a cold email. Now, this is the gimmicks of a cold email. Many times professors will not answer your cold email because you actually sent the message at the wrong time or in a wrong way. It's not advisable for you to send a cold email. Cold email is the email you send to a professor asking if he could supervise you, if he could give you funds for your project. It is not advisable that you do that in September and even October. Why? These 2 months are the height of the semester, the fall semester in the US. Resumption had just started 3 weeks before that period, and most of the lecturers will be busy with even their own student email, administrative emails. So having to attend to non-administrative emails might take time. You should understand that the time difference is another thing. Most advisors will read their email first by 9 a.m. in the US time, which will be 2 p.m. in Nigeria time, depending on the region. Some of them can be 3 hours. And while some might read by 4 p.m. before the evening class. So be careful of those times. Now, most of them will read all their emails. But you imagine if you send it in such a time that maybe between 9 and 10, and the lecturer is opening the email, the first thing he's saying is your email just coming in. It will give you a better chance. Sometimes even for me, some emails would have gone down and I would just be so tired of reading them as such. So now consider the timing. Another thing you should consider is the subject of your email. You don't want to start with pleading for PhD supervision, PhD scholarship. It doesn't work that way. So you want to start with prospective doctoral student application or inquiry on graduate studies. Now, they are obliged to respond to every inquiries. So if they think you are coming to make an inquiry, they would give you the attention. So your subject matters a whole lot. Now you have the subject settled. What do you want to have in your code email? Just go straight. Dear, their name, Professor this. If you don't know the title, just go straight to the name. Introduce yourself. I am this. Dear Slovakia, I am Iyanu Olalowo, a graduate of early childhood education from Nigeria. I had my first degree in this, and where I graduated with distinction. Even if you did not graduate with distinction, I had my first degree in this, having scaled through several obstacles to my academic pathway, for which I am now wanting to progress for a graduate studies. However, I would like to make inquiry on, now don't go straight to will you give me money? No, will you give me funding? It doesn't sell well. I would love to make, I was going through your department and I saw few things that are of interest to me, for which I would love to have a clarity over. More than all of this now, what are those all of this? Number one, I'd like to know what is the program structure like in terms of duration of a PhD program, in terms of opportunity for international students. Don't say that now those opportunities would include funding. So mention all of those things like that. You don't need to go much. Then thirdly, availability of PhD supervision position for maybe fall 2024, spring 2024. Now, you say more than all of this, I would also appreciate if you can create a time for a scheduled video conferencing with you so I could have a conversation on my application, on the graduate studies inquiry that I have as such. Another thing you can do would be that you can tell the person that you found his work awesome and you would love to make some questions about his project. Now, before you do that, be sure you have read that person's project indeed. Because if they create a time for you and you waste their time, it doesn't speak well of you. Now, maybe while you are searching and you saw that the person's research interest area is in using AI for communication with children with speech defect. Like, oh, I saw one of your work and I saw that this. I would love to make communication. I would love to engage with you to discuss this further as I have an interest in this area for my graduate studies. Now send that. That is if the school permits you. Now you have done that cold email. If they give you a reply, good. If you don't have a reply, there's no problem. The next thing you want to do is to apply to the school directly. Now you want to apply. Every school have a grant. They have a common grant, common application process, except for some peculiarities. In the US, number one thing is your transcripts. You need your transcript to make application. Now, I'll be skipping some things which I think we maybe are able to harvest in the question and answer session. You need your transcripts. You need a statement of purpose, and you also need letter of references. What is a statement of purpose? A statement of purpose just tells what is the purpose of you wanting these graduate studies. They won't just pour out their investment into anybody, but there must be some questions you must be able to answer. I brought this out as an example. This is a school telling you that if you want to apply to our school, these are the things you need. In your statement of purpose, this is less than 500 words. Some schools will tell you 2 pages. Some will tell you a single page. But what do you want to put in your statement of purpose? Why do you want that degree? What are your professional goals? Your statement of purpose should also be able to answer, if you are being admitted, what field? Now you see when I was saying that you don't just want to tell them you want to do history. What history do you want to do, for instance? Are you doing cultural history? Are you doing social history? Are you doing history of medicine? Be specific. What will you be interested in? And why are you going to be interested in this? If appropriate, and they're saying that you can include a discussion to public history. Okay, so this is a general view. Now, how have you prepared yourself in this place? So let me answer those questions. I'll give a practical example. One of the things I would do here is a practical sharing. When they ask you, why do you want to obtain a master's in history? Answering that question is about you telling them you have observed this gap and you notice that this is what people have not been doing. Oh, take for instance in Nigeria, history has now been, the study of history in secondary school education had been debated to be expunged, for which is due to the fact that most individuals do not take on the subject of history as a course of study in graduate studies or in the university level, which also are giving us to a downturn of faculties in the field of history. Now, honestly, what I'm telling you, I'm just saying it from my head at the moment. What I'm trying to tell them now is that I want to study history because we are now downsizing the lecturers of history in my country. I've told them why. Why do I need? And a graduate studies, a graduate degree is needed to become a lecturer. Now, if admitted, what specific field? Automatically, I've also included in the beginning by telling them that I am concerned with education history. I'm concerned with history for middle school, history for high school. Now, the next question tells you, how have you prepared yourself to undertake this advanced study? Start with the fact that you've been a teacher of history for about 6 years. You have familiarized yourself with the Nigerian curriculum, the British curriculum on history. All of those things should be featuring in your SOP. Most times people just think is if you can write anything, then no, it's not about how good are you in writing. How does your writing capture the sensitive questions? And it's not a story time for which you start saying, after leaving secondary school, I went to university to do this. No, you can write those things in a more engaging manner. Now, there are some SOP they will tell you there's a language of your study. In education, my own field, especially in education for underrepresented communities, there are language of my field, which I must show them that I have been doing things for which I can use and speak this language. And the last thing is, what is the advantage of that graduate program you want to study, you want to go? How does it serve your own particular interest? Now see, if you look at my screen now, you see what we have there. It said, how does it serve your interest in terms of the curriculum, the faculty research areas, or program specialties? Now you see why I said you need to have checked the school, you need to have checked the program, and you need to check one faculty at least whose work tallies with your work. Now this is where you want to argue that the reason why their school is the best fit is that you found a professor in their school who is doing what you want to do, and you would like to work with the professor. So how does it profit me? Having gone through having looked through the website to search for many schools offering this course, I found the work of Professor XYZ as a groundbreaking one in the area of history, sustenance of history in secondary schools. And I believe that this would help me to achieving my feat in this and this and this. Now, a more practical example of this is what I want us to look into. One of the things I should also say is that while doing this thing, you don't want to settle for just one thing and kind of like relent. I mean, I said earlier on, I started out this journey in 2017. I was on so many reserve lists. I got somebody in 2022 when I was going to get by most of these things. I ended up with 5 funded scholarship and about 3 international jobs also. So I was having to write an SOP for many of those things that were almost related in different schools as such. So now you have an SOP. This is the first paragraph of an SOP. You remember they said, why this program? Now I start with something like this. This is, if anything, a time when we'll need to be more concerned about children, their well-being, their families, and the children in our world who are most disadvantaged. Remember I said my interest is education for disadvantaged and marginalized communities. I said, cautions, Jennifer Davidson, the director of Institute of Inspiring Children's Future. Perhaps now more than ever, we are aware of how internationally interdependent we are right about the globe. Now, I started with, you don't start with, I wish to apply for a PhD. No. It doesn't work that way. From this first line, 2 things are already in this my application. Number 1, it shows that I am already engaging an international community because the Institute of Inspiring Children's Future is in the United Kingdom. It also shows that I am widely read. I kind of like do not just have my knowledge limited to what I know in my country alone. And I went on to say that if you going on, I said, collectively, we have to come to an important moment to act, to draw from our academic knowledge and practice wisdom about the realities of children and their families. Again, you see that I'm already talking about I am interested in studying children, studying things that help children and the families that face the greatest adversity. So you want to start your work with why do you want to do what you want to come for? And I ended up with saying, this in summary echoes my passion for a PhD in early childhood education. So my first paragraph already tells you what I want to come and do, why I want to come and do that. And now, there are always tons of application in a year. So you don't want to start with, I would like to study, everybody, they know you want to start with a PhD, you want to come and study a PhD. But how come if this individual reads my first paragraph and says, I'm not reading again, I just want to read the first paragraph, can my first paragraph sell out everything I want to do and in an effective way? That is what you should look after. Now, all of these things I told them I want to do, then I can now go on as to how am I positioned to doing all of these things I want to do. So my first paragraph answers, why do I want a PhD? My second paragraph goes on to my experiences. My experiences in the field of education has begun as an undergraduate. This, and this. Now, that is an academic experience, academic reason why I should be able or why I should be considered for this. But I feel like that might not be enough. How can I attach this thing to, we call it the psychology card. Now, the third paragraph again, you want to go into beyond book, beyond academic excellence. Remember I talked about it's not just about academic excellence. How does what you want to do attach to you personally? Then I was like, okay, from my family, I was the first person to get a university degree. So I know what I'm going for. And I was like, it was important that I do this. So I was trying to also talk about, you want to talk about how does it transcend beyond your academic pursuit to your personal pursuit? And how does that your personal purpose, how does it help in making you continue the program as such? Now, if you look at the second paragraph, I keep talking on the things I have done that pushed me from what the structure of the society could have limited me to become into what I am now pursuing. Take, for instance, I did not have anybody who has done early childhood education. Most of them are in sciences, but now I have to walk up to people. Those things shows how can this person go the extra mile. Now, you don't tell them, I have the ability to go extra mile. No, you will not write it verbatim. But there are stories you can wire around it that shows that this person have what it takes to go through a graduate rigor. Now, you leave that, you have established that. Again, the next question they were asking is, so you go on to like, what have you done? Then I'm like, okay, the few times I've tried to understand some complexities, I went into this, I did this project with my supervisor, I wrote this blog. You know, some things, some of us think it doesn't matter. I wrote this blog, I coached 3 people. Now, you also need to quantify your achievement. I coached 3 people in this and this and this. And when I coached them, these were the things we came by as such. Now, Apart from that, personally, I have also worked with this and this and this. Why I'm saying working with this, part of the things they want to see in a graduate program is, can you collaborate with someone? Can you collaborate? Can you be self-driven? Can you work independently? So how do? You don't need to say, I can work independently. How have you worked independently? All of those things are the things that you should feature in your work. Now, then you go on in what things have you done beyond what you have been doing currently. The US is always after who can go the extra mile. So like, what things have you done beyond now, beyond here, that can also have helped in, and that can help them consider you. That is where you can talk about all of those certifications I talked about, all of those volunteerisms that I talked about, all of those, maybe your faculty. See, even now, permitting to say this, even if your faculty, your lecturer, I just sent you to say, go and buy me a ream of paper. Wire it in such a way that you supported a research activity by being available to ensure that activities that would make a smooth research design was up to task. They don't need to ask you, what did you do? It is when you get to the interview stage, you can be saying that, but even at that time, you don't need to tell them you're buying papers for the department. So all of those things, so far it is related, and you have a lecturer who could say that on your behalf. So now, having done that, you want to now go like, okay, I've done all of these things. Then why is their school? Honestly, I would love to talk more on this, which is the last question in that school, the one we shared earlier on. They were like, how do you think these things you want to do? Why is our school? Why are the faculties? Why are they important? Now, let me read this out. I stated it here, and I'm like, when I was reviewing the schools in the United States for my PhD, I found that the University of Alabama has been top ranked in the Carnegie classification of institutions in higher education as an R1 university based on their very high research activity. Now, this thing, someone won't tell you. You need to find this information, which is another thing I think we should also go and look for. Now, every one of you can write down the Carnegie classification of institutions. What you will get there is you will see the ranking of schools. In US, there are top tier schools. Top tier schools are R1 institutions. They are basically research institutions. Now you have a third class. You have a third class or a 2-2. You don't have a research publication. You don't have any lecturer who can write recommendation on research for you. And you're now applying to an R1 university. You might not get selected. You might get admission but not get funding. So what do you do in that context? Look for R2 universities. Now, those of you that had searched earlier on when we started, you can go back to refine your search and like R1 or R2 universities, depending on your capability. Now, having stated that, I already told them that I know the school I'm coming to. I know the ranking of the school. I know the classification of the school. The next thing you want to do is talk about the departments. Now, see the category of this last paragraph. I started with the school. Going on next is the department. The research is done at the Department of Curriculum and Instruction, as well as the commitment of faculty. Now, I've gone from the department to the lecturers. Now, why do I have to put that in? Why do you need to put that in? The reason is that you remember that we have checked the lecturers before. You have checked the program before. You know the programs they do. How do I know that the research they do we are very wonderful? By the research interest of the individual lecturers. So all of those things are the things I think might also make your work substantial enough. Now, you said, because of this, I am attracted to learn and improve my research skills in this and this and this. I have told them why the school is best. Now, you will see that in some cases, you might be specific in the lecturer you want to work with. Oh, you saw the work of lecturer so. But I encourage people with my few, the little mentoring I've been doing, I saw that sometimes it can be a limiting factor. Why? The lecturer you want to work with might be, by the time you will be coming to the school, the lecturer might be in another school or might be holding another position. And since you said that's the only lecturer you found his work to be wonderful, it means other lecturers, you can't work with them. So sometimes I would encourage people that you can leave it open. Like, oh, you've seen the work in this department, you've seen the work that they are doing that is related to X, Y, Z, but not necessarily somebody or a specific person. But if you can do that, the only reason why for someone like me, you would be specific about the lecturer is if you have spoken with the lecturer and the faculty said, come on, I need you. Then you can be specific in your application to say that the work of so person, when you read the work, aligns with what you want to come and do. Then you tell them, these are the things that you think can also make you run your program and run it effectively. So all of that is what I think most people should capture in an SOP that makes it work out for them. Then the last thing I was going to talk about is if you're going to develop your resume. Again, I said that those people don't have the time to read 99 pages resume. Honestly, they don't have the time to read a 99 pages resume. Many of you, you've done this, you've done that. I agree. But honestly, a resume should be so concise that everything you have done should be in at most 2 pages. At most. And what do they need? I need your name. Now, if you're going for a research course, by now, if you're a graduate, the first thing you should have by now is that you should have a ResearchGate profile. Have a ResearchGate profile, have an OSIT profile if possible, if you have been making publications. And if you don't have, there's no problem. Again, I suggest to people that you should have an official email. Don't have doc for you, sporadic, whatever. Because most times, if they want to reply you, they do a lot of things. But they know your name and they want to reach out to you. If you are using a nickname, it becomes hard. It's not because maybe if you are using unofficial, they won't like, no. They just want something that makes life easy for them to contact you and you contacting them in return. So again, have an official email and whatsoever, like you have on the screen over there. Just make all of those things work out. Again, after all of those background, your name and your this, go straight. Your education. There's nothing like core values. There's nothing like, another thing you can do is maybe after your whole name and the likes, you can just go straight to giving them your, the core subjects, the core courses you took. But go straight to your education and training. Then from there, you also move on to your work experience. Now, most people will say education, but this is where you can build in your certification courses. Some of the courses I have here, aside from my bachelor's and my master's, are basically trainings that I did, international trainings that I did, and courses that I took at the international level. So you don't have a reason to write it anymore. Most of it, if I do an Udemy course, can I write? Yes, you can. It depends on how you structure it. It depends on how you structure it and what did you do in those courses. Now, you move from your education, go to your work experience directly. Now, again, I must say, if you are going for a research course, it does not speak well that you say you are a marketer for maybe a brand in your work experience. Look for things that are related. Did you, for once, I said earlier on, did you go buy just a paper for your department doing a research? Write it there like you are a research, it could be a research designing officer, research design officer. Tell them what you did. You made available resource. You made resources available upon the decision of the research head. All of those things is just about English and the likes. I'm sorry, I don't want to go there as such. And if you have other things, now if you have done all of that, the next thing you want to do is your academic activities. What things have you done in academic? Were you a course rep? Were you a group coordinator? All of those things can feature. All of those things can feature. Do not think anything cannot work until it is proven not to work. Then, have you been doing tutorials for your colleagues? I tell you, it is also a game to play. You've been doing, we are coming to read in your house. Include it in your academic activities. Then lastly, what skills do you have? All of these things should just be in 2 pages. Do you have publications? Also, I should talk about that. If you have publications, you should include your publications and the things you've done. Have you attended conferences? Now, most of us have not attended conferences, but you've gone to seminars. Include those seminars you're doing your undergrad and like, somebody in your department wants to present. You went there. If you can remember the topic, write it down. If you're also in your secondary school, they've taken you out on excursion, tell them you've attended those things as seminars and workshops in your works. And if you had any grants, those are the major things, your grants and your awards, and perhaps maybe. Now, I'm listing all of those things. They look much because those are the things that are featured in mine. If you don't have, there are other things that you have that can fit in to all of this. At this point in time, you have all of these packages. The next thing is for you to start your application proper. On this note, I think I should begin to round up and maybe welcome some questions and answers. Thank you very much.